Mm.
Okay, we'll let other people straggle in. Let's take a moment and come into presence. Let's come into our bodies even more, being present with it. And let the sound bring us all together. That's called spam. Let me put this on Do Not Disturb. Coming together, sitting here together, being in our bodies, opening our hearts, putting the attention at that place, right in the center of our heart, not the emotional heart. It's more what they call the intuitive heart. Feeling the breath moving in and out. Not controlling the breath and yet being present with it. Noticing how it moves on its own. Cycling in, cycling out. As a carrier for the life force, which we call prana. Allowing it to come into the body and move out of the body and in and out. And allowing it to move through that which we call the mind. Allowing feelings, thoughts to be present without controlling any of it. Allow your awareness to go wide without focusing on any particular thing. Just being aware of it all. The sounds, the sensations. If thoughts arise, let them arise in this space. Notice that they fall away in the same space. Any feelings that come, notice they arise in the same space. They fall away in the same space. Feeling the heartbeat. Feeling the heartbeat in the breath. Noticing if thoughts come, just let them come, let them go. Nothing to do with them. It's all energy patterns. That's all it is. Energy patterns running in their own particular frequencies, their own interactions with each other. And in this context, what actually is what we call healing? It's a big word in our community. What is it? Let's go to what is harmony? Harmony. Something that is in alignment with something else. In a relationship that produces something that feels good. What then is disharmony? Some wave of energy that's in relationship to another, and when the two of them come together, doesn't feel good. So that which we call healing is when that element of something inside our field, inside our awareness, is out of harmony with the whole. It's disharmonious, creates a dissonance. And that difference simply does not feel good. It's a signal, nothing more. But then the mind jumps into it and makes up a story about it. And adds to it and makes it more real and makes it appear more solid and makes it appear more consistent and makes it appear more continuous. And then to the degree that we believe we are the mind, we feel like something's not right. We're not right. That mistaken identity. And then we get involved with this field, trying to fix it, trying to change it, as if the mind knows what it needs to do for that. But all it does is it constantly gets caught up in the disharmony. And imagine behind it all, there's a master frequency. The yogis have heard it. The yogis have felt it. The yogis brought it back and told us what it is. It's Om, the master resonance. Infinitely powerful, infinitely harmonious with itself, which creates a very powerful resonant field. And we know from physics that when two or more energies patterns are in the same proximity, the strongest one entrains the weaker ones. So it can be said that that which we call healing is letting go of the mind's incessant need to monkey with our energies so that the master healing force can entrain all the other parts. And that which has been out of harmony gradually comes back into harmony and operates in alignment with the whole, with the intelligence behind it all. And therefore, there's nothing we need to actually do to make it happen. It's the natural consequence of the way things are designed. All we have to do is let go of preventing it from happening. And that prevention comes from a place of fear. And the fear itself is out of alignment because it's ignorant. It's out of knowledge of the whole. So for now, I invite us to take the entire thing that which we call us, that which is actually the energy field of our localized experience of this incarnation, and offer it to the master resonance, offer it to the Om, offer it to the master benevolent, unconditional love, so that it can tune up anything else inside us that's out of alignment. And this is what surrender means, not to give up, just to let go of the need to try to fix anything. And because we come together, two or more coming together in the name of this field, it's greatly amplified through all of us right now. And this is why we come together in community at this level. Not simply to receive, but to be a participant in allowing it to work through us. Because at this very instant, it's not confined to those who are present in this satsang. It expands through us to all whom we're connected to right this very now. And if you were to follow those connections, you would realize that what's going through us right now is connected to everything. So I invite us to let go of even the idea that anything that arises in our experience is actually ours. And see what happens when you entertain that idea as you go through your daily life. So here we are. Tonight, continuing with this whole idea of extricating ourselves from the thinking, the habitual thinking, the habits that we've been raised in, the cultural habits that we've been raised in, the intergenerational patterning that we've inherited. Yesterday, I was hanging out on Quora, where I like to go sometimes and write responses to various questions. And a question that came up was, why can't we control our thoughts? And the first line of my answer is, because we are actually not the thinker. Let that sink in. The idea that we are the thinker, that we are the source of the thoughts, in and of itself is just another thought. So I start with saying, because we are actually not the thinker. Fortunately, there is no need to control thoughts. Just cease to be interested in them as prescribed by Nisargadatta. When we think we are the thinker, our engagement with thoughts adds energy to the thought machine, thus spinning off more thoughts. Disengaging and witnessing them removes that energizing, and the system loses its power. We are not the thoughts. We are not the mind. We are not the thinker. We are the awareness behind it all. We are the space between the thoughts. We are the space between the thoughts.
Yeah.
Imagine you could see a thought, and if you pay enough attention, you can. Is the thought finite? A single thought. Is it finite or infinite?
Finite.
Exactly. The space between the thoughts. Is it finite or infinite?
Infinite.
Yeah, which one would you rather identify with?
Duh.
Duh, right? But isn't it interesting?
Yeah, it is. It's great.
You go ask, almost everybody believes that not just that they're their thoughts, but they are the thinker of their thoughts. And then my next question is, oh yeah, what's your next thought going to be?
Right.
So it's really interesting where it comes from.
Yeah.
This is not simply us playing mind games with words here. This is looking at the very perhaps most pervasive and most profound case of mistaken identity, which is that we are the thoughts. I've actually taken that the second most. The first most, well, no, they go hand in hand, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. Now I come back to say what the most profound case of mistaken identity is, that we are the body.
Mm.
But the reason why I come back to say no, it's that we are the thoughts and the thinker, because it's the thinking that tells us we're the body.
Mm.
This is trippy stuff. And yet, if you keep working with it and just keep paying attention to it, the whole thing starts to unravel. And with that, some point, what you think you are starts to become extricated from the mind. And there's the end of suffering. That's it. Pain is of the body. Suffering is of the mind. Moreover, there's this fellow, Ian McGilchrist, I believe. Yes. Researcher of split brain. In other words, there are people who, for epileptic reasons or other kind of reasons, have had to have the corpus callosum cut between the left, which is the channel of communication between the left brain and the right brain. And they would do these experiments to see what happens with the communication around that. And there's one particular case that's really struck me. This woman who was seeing a picture of something and having an emotional reaction to it. They asked her, now remember, this is somebody who's got no communication between the left part of the brain and the right part of the brain. They asked her, what's going on in that picture? The picture is processed by the right side of the brain. The emotions is processed by the right side of the brain. That question went off to the left side of the brain. And the left side of the brain came up with an absolute bullshit story of what was going on in that picture. Think about this for a moment.
Yeah.
Just because there's a communication channel between those two halves does not necessarily mean that the left brain knows what's going on. And all of a sudden, things became clear to me, because I don't know about you guys, but so many times I'd been caught up in some kind of emotional feeling state of pain, emotional pain. And the left brain would go at it and come up with stories about it. It's because of this. It's because of this. Let me fix it. Let me get into it. Let me figure it out. And then we go back to what I just read before. Now the mind is getting engaged. The thoughts are getting engaged. We are lending it our awareness, our attention, our consciousness. In other words, we're giving it the energy through the mistaken identity of thinking we're the mind. The mind then says, I got to fix this. Let me fix this. And we effectively say, take my attention and run with it. The attention is the energy fuel for it. And then it's all bets are off at that point. Great bumper sticker. Don't believe everything you think.
Yeah. That's a good one.
When it comes to habitual thinking, which is to say that which arises in your mind when you're not intentionally using your mind, don't believe any of it. None of it. As you start to play with this and work with this, you start to find that you gradually are extricating yourself from the mistaken identity. I'm not the thinker, I'm not the mind. What am I? There's a good internal, called self-inquiry question. That's the core of Ramana Maharshi's work, which I've referenced before. We'll get into it more. I'll put on a 15-minute piece for us to watch to help reinforce some of this. And then we'll come back and have a conversation.
The mind isn't a thing, but an event, much like a wave or a river, something that happens rather than something that is. A thing has substance, like a rock, but an event is a process, a phenomenon, like the moment when wind stirs the ocean and creates a wave. It exists, but it's not solid. This is key to understanding the mind. If the mind had substance, it would be permanent. But since it's just a process, it can dissolve without leaving any trace. Think of a wave disappearing back into the ocean. Nothing is left behind, not even a mark. The mind is like that too. As those who have realized the truth say, the mind is like a bird flying through the sky. No footprints, no path, no evidence that it was even there. What we call mind is really just a series of thoughts moving so quickly that they create an illusion of something continuous. One thought follows another so fast that we miss the tiny gaps between them. The speed of these thoughts gives the impression of an unbroken flow, making us believe that there is a mind. But in reality, it's just the rapid movement of thoughts, like waves on the ocean coming and going without anything substantial underneath. The mind is a collection of thoughts, just like a crowd is a collection of individuals. A nation exists only because of its people, but beyond that, the nation itself is just a concept, not an independent entity. When we look deeper into the mind, it vanishes. What we thought was a mind is revealed to be nothing more than individual thoughts. Once this is realized, a profound shift happens. You become aware that thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky, but you, the true self, are the sky itself, vast, open, and unaffected by the passing thoughts. You become the witness, merely observing the thoughts as they come and go without attachment. This realization brings a sense of freedom. You understand that thoughts, like clouds or the wind, are temporary, and you no longer identify with them. The mind isn't a solid entity that can be controlled in the way we often think it can. In fact, how can you control something that isn't really there? And who would control it? If someone claims to control the mind, it would only be another fragment of the mind trying to dominate a different part. This is what the ego is, one part of the mind trying to impose control over the rest. But when you see beyond the illusion of the mind, you no longer need to control anything. You become the witness, and in that witnessing, mastery arises effortlessly. You are the vast, empty sky, and the clouds of thought merely pass through. The mind can't be controlled the way you think. It's not something you can grab hold of, and there's no one inside to do the controlling. There's just this inner emptiness which can observe but not control. But here's the key. The act of observing is control. When you simply witness the mind, it fades away. Think of it like this. You're running in the dark, terrified because you believe someone is chasing you, but it's just your shadow. No matter how fast you run, it stays with you. The faster you go, the closer it feels. Looking back doesn't help. The shadow is always there. But running isn't the answer, and neither is trying to control it. Instead, stop, stand still, and face it. When you look closely, the shadow vanishes, because it was never real, just a trick of light. The mind is like that too. It's only there when you're not fully present. Sit quietly and look deep within. The mind slips away. Thoughts might still be there, but the mind itself, gone. When the mind dissolves, something remarkable happens. You realize that your thoughts aren't truly yours. Yes, they come and hang around for a bit, but they never come from you. Have you noticed? Not a single thought has ever arisen from within you. They drift in from the outside, like clouds floating over a hill. They rest for a while and then move on. You don't have to do anything, just watch. And in that watching, you've already gained control, though control isn't the right word. Words are clumsy, shallow tools. They belong to the mind, after all, so they can't really capture this experience. When you observe deeply, it feels like control, but it's not about forcing anything. The thoughts are still there, but they no longer command you. They come and go, and you remain untouched, like a lotus in the rain. Water droplets land on its petals but slide off without leaving a trace. The lotus remains pure, unbothered. That's what happens to you when you master this art of watching. Thoughts may come, but they leave no mark on you. Imagine you're a traveler lost in the forest. Dark clouds gather, lightning flashes, and you're desperate to find your way home. You're hurrying, anxious, and the storm feels overwhelming. But then you find your way. You're home, safe. Now, as you sit inside, everything changes. The storm that terrified you outside now becomes beautiful. The rain, the lightning, the thunder, you enjoy them because you're no longer lost. You're sheltered. This is what happens when you find your inner center. On the surface, chaos and confusion may reign, but once you reach that inner calm, you can watch it all unfold without being affected. You no longer need to fight the storm. You've slipped into your core, and suddenly there's mastery. Not a forced control, but a natural ease that comes from being centered. To center yourself in consciousness is to master the mind. This is important. Don't focus on controlling the mind. That idea can mislead you. No one can truly control the mind, and those who try often drive themselves crazy. Why? Because it's just one part of the mind trying to control another part. It's a battle that leads nowhere. Thinking can't be forced to stop, but it does stop on its own. Understanding this is crucial. Otherwise, you might find yourself endlessly chasing your thoughts, exhausting yourself in the process. Instead of trying to stop the mind, let it quiet down naturally. No mind doesn't happen by trying to stop your thoughts. Any effort to force it will only lead to more anxiety, more inner conflict, and a sense of being divided within yourself. Trying to stop thinking doesn't help. It just creates more turmoil. Even if by some force you manage to quiet the mind for a few moments, it's not a true accomplishment. Those moments may feel still, but they lack life. It's not real silence, just a surface-level stillness. Beneath that forced calm, the mind keeps working in the background, suppressed but not gone. There's no way to forcibly stop the mind. But the mind does stop, that's certain. It happens naturally, without effort. So what should you do? The question is important. Just watch. Don't try to stop the mind. There's no need to fight it. After all, who would be doing the stopping? It would still be the mind, trying to control itself, splitting into two parts, one part trying to dominate the other. It's a pointless struggle, and it can drive you mad. Don't engage in this battle. Instead of trying to control your thoughts, allow them total freedom. Let them run wild, however fast or chaotic they may be. Your role is not to control, just to witness. And here's the secret. The mind is not your enemy. It's actually a beautiful, intricate mechanism, something far beyond what science has been able to replicate. It's a masterpiece of complexity and potential. So, watch it with curiosity, not hostility. If you approach it as an enemy, you're already setting yourself up for failure because you've judged it. You're engaging with it again instead of staying outside as a neutral observer. The deeper your watchfulness becomes, the more aware you become, and something interesting starts to happen. Gaps appear. One thought goes, and before the next one arrives, there's a brief pause. One cloud drifts by, and another hasn't yet formed. There's a moment of stillness. In these gaps, you'll get your first taste of no mind. It's like a clear sky suddenly appearing between clouds. These brief intervals are glimpses of a deeper state of being. Call it Zen, Tao, or the essence of yoga. In those small gaps, the mind falls away, and you experience clarity for the first time. In the beginning, these moments of stillness will be brief and rare, like small islands of silence scattered across the vast ocean of thought. But these glimpses are your first taste of what samadhi is. Tiny moments of peace, they come and go, but now you know you're on the right path. So keep watching. Watch the thoughts as they pass, and watch the quiet spaces in between. Both are beautiful. The clouds of thought and the clear sky of silence, each has its own beauty. You're no longer picking sides. You don't say, I only want the silence. That's a trap. The moment you get attached to the intervals of peace, you're back to resisting thoughts, and those gaps will slip away. They come only when you are detached, observing without trying to force anything. They happen naturally, spontaneously. Continue watching. Let the thoughts flow freely, without interference. Don't try to control or direct them. Let them go wherever they wish. Nothing is wrong. The more you allow this, the bigger the gaps will become. You'll experience deeper moments of silence, small satori's, blissful, peaceful moments where thought ceases entirely. At first, they may last only a few minutes, but during these moments, everything becomes clearer. You'll see the world differently. The trees will appear more vivid, the air more alive, as if the universe is vibrating with a subtle, endless music. You'll sense a presence, something divine, mysterious, all around you. It touches you, yet you cannot hold it. It's within reach and yet beyond grasp. As the gaps grow longer, this clarity won't just be outward. You'll realize that this presence, this godliness, isn't just in the world outside, it's within you too. It's not only in what you see, but in the one who sees. God is both the seen and the seer. But don't become attached to even this. Attachment fuels the mind, keeps it running. The key is non-attachment. Simply witness everything, detached. This is how the mind slows down without any effort to stop it. The more you enjoy these peaceful moments, the more your ability to hold on to them will grow. Eventually, you will become a master of your own mind. Then you can think when you need to, but when thought isn't needed, you let it rest. You're no longer controlled by it. You use it, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
What amazing visuals there were there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I could melt into that for hours.
Yeah. And the
I
voice.
love the mushrooms when
Of
they're
course
coming
you
in from
do,
the
Don.
Who was that speaking again?
Well, I think it's an AI generated voice, and it's David Attenborough kind of a voice.
Yeah. But the words are from who?
That's a good question. There's this, the channel is, what do I have here? Hang on a second. It is Snake Speak, and there's another one called Amorphix. They're both, I think, the same person. I'll put that into the notes of the
Thank you.
study. So what are the salient points that really resonated for you? There's a lot there. It's all interconnected. What is it that you found really spoke to you that is actionable for you?
I really appreciated the image of a thought is like a bird that flies through, leaving no evidence of it ever having been there. And yeah, it's beautiful, it's colorful, it's an attraction, but it's not anything to latch onto.
Mm-hmm.
That image of a bird flying through, or a butterfly, it could be, anything.
Yeah. So given that, what then is habitual thought?
What then is habitual thought?
I'm saying if that, and given that image, you have a nice thought that comes and it goes.
Yeah.
But what then is what we call habitual thought?
How we've been raised.
Well, that's partly the source of habitual thought.
Ego.
Thought itself, habitual. I mean, how many times have we had thoughts? Rumination, right? Obsession, compulsion. What are these?
Well, for
But
some of
the
us.
needle is stuck in the groove. on an
It's the
old
groove.
log.
Correct. Right. Right.
Yeah,
The
the,
Sanskrit word for it is samskara.
We're not lifting the needle off. We're just
Yes.
the
pretending that
default mode
that's
network.
being,
The
It is.
default mode network.
It's the, they say that thoughts that wire together fire together.
or the other way around.
Thoughts that
Fire together.
fire together. Fire is first. Boy, that's interesting. I thought I was going to say that. Yes. Thoughts that fire together, wire together. And so biologically, that means as we focus on a certain set of thoughts over and over and over again, our neurons form to create a groove or a channel for that to happen more automatically. Part of that is,
Repetition.
well, the repetition causes it. The reason why that's built into our neurology is because it creates an efficiency. So you go through life, you don't have to remember how to get to the grocery store.
Right.
However, you see the downside of it is when we've been raised in a way that doesn't teach us how to be aware or the importance of awareness or what it actually is, then we start to create grooves, habits of thinking that constantly reinforces itself to seem like the mind is in charge, the mind is in control, and we are just the victim of a thinking pattern, really.
Yeah.
And so,
And
go ahead, Don.
if there's an emotional charge to the initial experience or subsequent experiences that go along with that thought, and that emotional charge, makes it more of a groove, it makes the groove
It
more
intensifies
intense.
it, right? It in fact does.
Yeah, so
And when you
the emotional charge to it is
and when
part
you
of
get
it.
a significant emotional charge with no perceived way out of it, that creates what's called trauma.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, learned helplessness.
Learned helplessness. Right.
one thing I was struck by, I think I heard him say, mind is only there when I'm not fully present.
Yeah, that one caught my attention too.
Wow.
Yeah.
So sit with that a moment. See where that takes you.
Where it takes me, I mean, soon after he was talking about we don't notice the spaces
Yes.
with the thoughts.
Yes.
And that's when we think there's mind.
Yes.
And then in observing and watching, little by little, we start to get peaks of the spaces. And the more we watch without attachment, non-judgmentally, the spaces have a
They open up. It keeps opening up. Yeah.
Yeah.
It keeps opening up because our focus shifts. Our focus is no longer hypnotized. It is a form of hypnosis. It is. And so, interestingly, what is it that gets us to leave the presence are those very thoughts, which then reinforce those very thoughts. It's an interesting.
They're seductive. The thoughts are seductive, right? Yeah.
It is very seductive. And specifically, the contents of the thoughts, that's the seductive part. The contents of the thought is the drama, is the story of what's going on right now. When we go off and we go, did you see what happened in the White House today? That is a reinforcement of, because let's put another word associated with this level of mind. It's the ego mind. And the way it reinforces itself, it's kind of predicated and tasked with survival. There's a role for it. It got us to this point. Animals can't go past that. Humans can, but most humans don't. But they get caught in this mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like we are in a place now where we have this opportunity. That's why being incarnated right now in this time space is extremely fortuitous. We have an opportunity to go beyond that. But the collective of that very pattern is trying to stop the process because it perceives that going beyond it is the death of it. So these are other things that are going on. But the point being, one of the mechanisms that it uses is it gets you to leave yourself, because being in presence is being with yourself.
Right.
But
Is that
go ahead, what?
is that akin to the beginner's mind? When you think about entering a new whatever.
Beginner's mind is the experience of seeing everything as if it's the first time, without the habitual mechanism behind it. So for instance, you go look at a tree, you see the leaves. The mind immediately deletes most of the reality around it. It says, oh yeah, tree. I know what that is. What's next?
Yeah.
But what it's not seeing is the moment. Because the fact is, if you look at a leaf and then you come back a second later and look at it, it's not the same leaf. But the mind says, oh, I got that. I know what that is. So what it immediately does at lightning speed, habitual lightning speed, is it throws a construct over reality. The construct being tree, leaf, I know what this is. That whole thing deletes or overshadows the moment of the new no mind, or the new beginner's mind.
Yeah.
Your mind experience.
Now it starts to come apart when you start seeing through it, when you start to see it as it is. So if I suggest to somebody, sit here and look at this leaf, and that's it for the next 5 minutes. Within 30 seconds, that mind will say, I'm bored. What's next? What exactly is that boredom? It's the mind not being present. And I know from my own experience, as I'm in presence more and more and more, I could sit and just stare and be present with something for insane amounts of time. There's no boredom. So the other part of it is, though, when we think we are this, then a lot of the thoughts that come up are replays of the past in some distorted form. And then we had it, you weren't there for this one, Catherine, early on. I think I had a video by the same person, basically said, who's the mind talking to? And what it's doing is it's talking to itself. But because we identify with it to that degree, we think it's us. And it's actually a mechanism that is fundamentally insane, meaning disconnected from reality, capital R. But if we think we're that, we get thrown around and yanked around by it. So if it's coming up with thoughts of the past, my mother didn't love me enough. My mother didn't love me enough. Oh, I'm feeling this pain. Well, that's because my mother didn't love me enough. It's just reinforcing the suffering. And it's nothing more than thoughts. Because if you could drop that thought, what is your experience fairly shortly thereafter?
Peace.
Bingo. Why? Because peace is what's behind it all. The true nature, the space between the thoughts is peace. And that's us at our core, which is why as we can let go of the habitual thinking, what's left is not just peace, but it's also the source of joy. It's the source of creation. It's the source of compassion. It's like all the good stuff is what we are. But when the thoughts are there and it says, you're bad, you don't deserve, it's one part of the mind yelling at another part of the mind. And if we think we're that, we're lost in it.
Yeah.
So it starts with witnessing. Witnessing is like super powerful. Awareness is our superpower.
Yeah.
Why? One thing is it is the whole, and that's extraordinarily powerful. Two, the Buddhists say that awareness is corrective. Going back to the meditation, the opening meditation tonight, awareness is the resonance of the Om. It's the most powerful resonance there is. And so when we are present in this awareness, we're linked, we're I want to be careful how I say this because it may seem what I say here that there's something that I am that is separate from awareness, that I'm connecting myself back to awareness. No, that's not what it is. It's that which I am is really this. And I'm letting go of a distortion in the thinking that's telling me I'm something separate from that. And then as that happens, that which we are comes back into alignment with that which we always were. Let me rephrase that. That which we think we are comes back into alignment with that which we always were. And then that infinite resonant power comes in and unwinds the rest of the mistaken identity. That's why awareness is corrective. And the moment we step back into awareness, it then comes into our field, our localized field of energy, and starts to sort things out.
Isn't it amazingly simple
Yes.
when it really comes down to
Yes.
it?
It is amazingly simple.
Really? Yeah.
And, in my deepest moments of clarity, granted, often on psychedelics, but hey, they work. I realized like the truth is so simple. Getting there, on the other hand, is where all
Yeah,
the
right.
complexity is. But
Right.
the bottom line of it all is it's extraordinarily simple. And the mind will say, well, simplicity has no power. No, it's the opposite.
Right.
There's nothing more powerful than that simplicity. I am,
Yeah.
period.
Maybe,
I
maybe
am is
that's why
simpler.
we don't look at.
Yeah, well, the mind can't grasp the simplicity. The mind, as a
It's got-
mechanism which needs to generate thoughts, depends on complexity in order to grasp something.
Yeah.
And so it generates the complexity in order for it to have something to hold on to. Because that holding on to, which is in the form of, I know,
Right.
is a security blanket.
Right.
Ram
False security. It creates this false security. Huh?
It's a false security.
Yeah, but it's trying to create security.
Right.
But it's really not.
Right. So you simply have to be willing to go through that temporary membrane of fear when you realize, when the mind realizes and you realize that which I've been depending on for my sense of safety doesn't actually exist.
Right.
And there is that time of fear, which tends to keep us clinging onto those old patterns.
Sure.
But once you go through it, then you come into the real sense, the total truth of safety, which is I'm safetiness itself.
Yeah.
And then the busyness of the mind calms down because we're not fueling it. The space opens up. We recognize it more, and you're in a virtuous cycle of expansion into this.
Yeah.
So as always, it always starts with awareness. Be aware. And then let it run the show. Now, there's a whole other level of using the mind with intention.
Sure.
That's a whole other conversation we'll have for another time.
Yeah, that does make sense, that it's about focus then. So you have the awareness, but where do you want to, and you have that universal energy and whatever, where do you want to do with it?
Exactly.
Where do you want to focus it?
Right.
Yeah, that would be a great topic.
Well, I'm working on some really, really interesting material around all of that.
Nice.
Between that and working with the quantum field and how consciousness reflects on itself. I mean, I'm in a mind-blowing space. I'm just not ready to share it yet.
Mm-hmm. Great. Nice.
Just notice what's present right now.
Well, Eric, I sort of have a question.
Yeah, please.
So I think I heard in the video was the statement that a few times, statements like "don't stop the mind," variations on that, but also a phrase like "the mind stops on its own."
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering if I misunderstood that or misheard that, because if that is true, I guess I'm trying to understand maybe some core part of a learning from that statement about, therefore, I mean, maybe one way to say there is nothing to do. The mind stops on its own. It dot dot dot. I mean, can you just help me if I'm understanding or misunderstanding something when I hear the phrase "the mind stops on its own"?
Yeah, let's play with that. First of all, what is the nature of the mind? It is thoughts. It's a collection of thoughts. There is a point in that talk where he said when thoughts are coming at a fairly high rate, and there's no perception, operative word perception, there's no perception of the space between thoughts, it appears that it's a solid entity. And if you try to control it, as he said, it doesn't work, because then what you have, because the mechanism that's trying to control it, the mechanism that even has the thought that it needs to control it, is in itself a thought. So it's all coming from the mind. And then what you end up having is you have what's called a split mind in people, right? Where one mind is at war essentially with the other part of a mind. And then the result of that conflict is what we feel in our bodies as all sorts of angst and dysfunction, anxiety, all sorts of things like that. And so, and then so it's a combination of leaving the present, so we're not aware of this, the mistaken identity with the mind being what we are, So then when the mind says something like, I don't feel okay, I'm not okay, then we get engaged with it and we think we're not okay. And then we start to add fuel to it, and the whole thing's running itself even at a higher rate. And then we think we have to control this. This is driving me crazy. How many people have said, my mind is driving me crazy? But what they don't realize is they're fueling it because it goes on, they go unconscious about it. So when you see it for what it is, at the starting point always is to step back into awareness. So let's go through a couple of phases here. In the earlier stages, we get caught in the habitual thinking. I call that going down the rabbit hole. Going unconscious. People unconsciously, which is the same as habitually, get caught in the thinking process. And then they're squirming with it because they're also habitually and unconsciously caught with the mistaken identification. They're down the rabbit hole they go. Somehow, I don't know how it happened for myself or any of you for that matter, but I consider it grace that somehow, at some point, something in me, as me, woke up and saw it. Said, oh, been in the thinking. Step back into this awareness space, back to the breath, whatever your portal is, right? The breath is an excellent portal for that. So you use the breath. And then that moment, you've disengaged from it. That disengagement is space. As that happens now, you are, to the degree that you are in the space, the awareness is to the degree that you have disengaged from feeding the machine. As you do that, the machine has no intrinsic energy unto itself. It depends on us lending our energy to it. Once we withdraw that through awareness, there you go. You just got it.
Okay. I mean, it's a helpful example because I think what is confusing to me is witnessing to say, you can't control thoughts, step back and witness them. To me, that's controlling thought in a way. And I think your example helped by switching from maybe just a purely mental activity to a physical activity.
That's a doorway.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a doorway.
That's helpful.
And you're not in that example, what you said, oh, I thought that was me controlling thoughts. No, that's controlling where you place your attention, which is not a thought process.
Seems like one. I guess that's why I have such a hard time with it.
Very good. It seems like one when we are identified with the mind and the thoughts. Then everything seems like that. Mm-hmm. But it's not. So for instance, if I say to you, use your discernment to decide whether something is true for you or not. Is that a thinking process or not?
No.
Ultimately, no. But in the beginning, it appears like that. Because the idea is, well, everything's a thought, therefore discernment is an analytical process and I discern what's correct and what's not correct. But discernment turns out, as we are taught from the yogis, and I trust them, that where they've managed to map out consciousness very clearly, discernment is not of the intellect. It comes from a much deeper layer. And so my point being, until we start to distinguish between the different levels of consciousness operating through us as us, everything appears as if it's just thoughts in the mind. Which is more of a coarse way of relating to, let's call it consciousness. But as you pay more attention and your sensitivity turns up, you become aware in a more refined way of the distinguishing layers. Even though I say the word distinguishing, even though they're operating in a single field, but there are layers. There are more causal layers and more effect layers. It's just that until we start to see that, everything seems to be cause and effect mixed into one ball of energy. Does that help? Good. If there's nothing else, I thought what I would put on, I've got a great 20-minute yoga nidra meditation that we could do. Yoga nidra is Sanskrit, basically. It's basically a body scan. And it's a really good way of just practicing moving your attention and placing it intentionally. And the same training that you use that for, you could use to withdraw the attention from being caught in a thought to go back into awareness. So it works very nicely. So I thought we would do that. Okay. Let me put that on.
Right before going to bed too.
It's a good one. It's also really good in the middle of the night if you wake up. There's a lot of different versions of it. This is a really nice 20-minute version of this. Let me come over to here.
Better than a bedtime story.
Yeah. Let's see, where's the meditation? Come on. You can see all the George Harrison music I played today. Let's see.
Still playing with the Beatles, huh?
Oh man, I am so deep into the Beatles now because of our sing-along. It's like I'm rediscovering all sorts of. Let's see. I'm curious. Can you hear that? No, not really, right? Okay, let me do a share. Here we go. Okay.
So come into a comfortable lying down position for this yoga nidra.
You can sit up.
You can either lie on a yoga mat on the floor or on your bed, as long as it's supportive. And make sure you're warm and comfortable with a blanket over you if it's suitable for your climate. Your spine should be straight. Your hands resting at your sides with your palms face up. Your knees can be bent, particularly if you've got lower back pain. Or your legs can be straight, with your feet falling out to the side, as in the traditional Shavasana position. And begin by simply noticing the weight of your body against the floor. Get a sense of its heaviness. The field of gravity pulling you down. And as you do that, you can imagine that all the tension, all the tiredness, all the stress is just draining away through the floor, out your feet, leaving you to feel more and more relaxed. And this yoga nidra is intended to help you relax and also to help you just settle down and let go for falling asleep, if you prefer to use it that way. So begin by taking a deep breath in through your nostrils, breathing in, feeling the lungs, feeling the chest, all the way down to the abdomen. And breathing out, exhale through the mouth. Very consciously letting go of any tightness, any holding in the body. And we can do this 3 times. Conscious, deep breathing. Feeling the body relax with each exhalation. And now I'll guide you through the body parts systematically. Just listen to my instructions in a relaxed way. If thoughts come in to intrude, to distract, just simply direct your attention gently back to my voice and to the instructions. Follow what I say in an easy way to help you let go and relax. Take your attention now to the palm of your right hand and notice the sensations there. Move the attention now into the right thumb, the right index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and little finger. The whole of the right hand, the back of the hand, the wrist, the right forearm, up to the right elbow, the right upper arm, and the right shoulder. Allowing this part of the body to soften and relax. Moving the attention now to the left hand, the left thumb, index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and the little finger of the left hand. The palm of the left hand, the back of the left hand, the wrist, left forearm, elbow, upper left arm, and the left shoulder. Again, allowing this part of the body to completely soften and relax. Now Now feel both the left arm from the left shoulder and the right arm from the right shoulder. And feel the weight, the heaviness, and the relaxation deepening into both these body parts. Gently moving your attention now to your throat and sweeping your attention down the front part of the torso. Just like a warm oil flowing down into the upper chest. The right breast, the left breast, down into the rib cage, the upper part of the stomach, the middle part, down into the abdomen, the right hip, the left hip, and gently sweep your attention from the throat all the way down the front part of the torso. Simply noticing whatever sensations are there. Feeling the gentle movement of the abdomen with each breath in and each breath out. Allowing the relaxation to deepen and deepen. Gently shifting your attention now to the neck. Feel the muscles in the neck. And now we'll gently move the attention down the back part of the body. Feeling the right shoulder, the left shoulder, the shoulder blades, the upper part of the spine, the attention moving down like a warm oil into the middle part of the back and slowly drifting down to the lower back. Feel the whole of the spinal column from the neck all the way down to the lower back. Any tension, any pain in the back, just imagine it passing out through the floor. Every tendon, every muscle, every nerve, softening, relaxing, letting go. Shifting the attention down again into the right buttock, down into the thigh, the front part of the thigh, the back of the thigh, the knee, the right shin, the right calf, down to the ankle, into the feet, the sole of the foot, the top of the right foot, the first toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, and the little toe. Feeling all the tingling, the warmth, the different sensations in your right foot. And imagine any tension just draining away through this foot. And again, sweep your attention from the buttock all the way down to the foot, becoming heavier and heavier, more and more relaxed. Gently shifting your attention now to your left buttock, sweeping down into the left thigh, the back of the thigh, the left knee, the calf, the shin, the left ankle, the top of the left foot, the sole of the left foot, the first toe, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth toe. Feeling the aliveness, the sensations, the warmth, all the way from the left buttock to the left foot. Just sweep your attention down and up, down and up. And notice all the tension simply draining away through your foot. Feel both legs now at the same time, and feel the weight, the heaviness, the gravity, earthing you, grounding you, and relaxing you. And now gently bring your attention to your face, starting at the forehead, the temples, the eyes, eyelids, the nose, the cheeks, the jaw, the tongue, the lips, all the face muscles now. relaxing, softening, letting go. Including your awareness from the top of your head all the way down through your skull. Imagine a warm oil just moving all the way from the top of your head, over your skull, over your face. Everything soft, relaxed. Having surveyed the whole body now, part by part, just bring your attention again to the whole of your body, lying still, relaxed, at ease. Noticing how quiet the mind is, the deep calm, the stillness. The body is completely relaxed. The mind is calm. The awareness is bright, peaceful. And you can continue with this yoga nidra now, as long as you like. Getting up when you feel ready. Or if you're using it to drift off to sleep. The music will play for a little while. And you can enter into a deep, peaceful, calm sleep.